Shalom and welcome to Yeshiva B'nai Noach. I'm Tom Averna, and this is the Beginning Biblical Hebrew course. Today we'll take a look at Chapter 5, Nouns and Verbs Feminine. These are the exercises for Chapter 5 from the First Hebrew Primer, 3rd edition. And as always, a reminder that this textbook should be purchased prior to taking this class. So if you haven't purchased the textbook, please do so before continuing so that you have the textbook with you, since there are some things that we will not be covering in the class, but are important for you to have, and plus it's just the right thing to do. So please purchase the textbook and then continue taking the class. But again, we are in Chapter 5, Nouns and Verbs Feminine, taking a look at the exercises. In Chapter 5, we will begin some new exercises that you haven't seen before and that you will see many times from this point on. We'll get to that towards the end of the exercises. Right now, just the basics. Read and translate each of the following words. State whether they're masculine or feminine. And I will read the Hebrew, but the rest I'll leave up to you to do. And we'll generally not have from this point on too much introduction to the basics here, and as we'll spend most of our time looking at the more complicated exercises that will be coming up. So let's just read and translate, and as I've said before, I'll try and pause always before I begin the reading, so that you can stop the video and read them on your own. Please do that first. Try before you listen to me, see how you do, and then listen to the video, and then go back and do some more practice on it as much as you need to. I think that's the best way to do it. And as far as the translations go, those you should be able to verify just from your book, but so we won't spend a lot of time on translations here. All right, so let's begin with exercise 1. Number 1, Bain. Number 2, Bat. Number 3, Ish. Number 4, Isha. Number 5, Abraham. Number 6, Na'ar. Number 7, Na'ara. Number 8, Melech. Number 9, Mishpacha. Number 10, Av. Number 11, Behemah. Number 12, Yerushalayim. Number 13, Davar. Number 14, Bait. Number 15, Mitzrayim. Exercise 2, read and translate the following verb forms and write them in their root form. Just a reminder that the root form would be the generally 3-letter consonant root, and you would just put periods between each of the letters, and that's how you would write them in their root form. Again, the writing is important for practice, but as far as the class is concerned and just being able to read the Hebrew and translate and understand it, the main thing I'm asking you to focus on is simply the verbal portions. But again, writing is very important to learning the process. So we begin with exercise 2. Number 1, halach. Halcha. Halecha. We'll talk about this after the exercise. Number 2, amad. Amidah. Number 3, shamar. Shamara. Number 4, Shama, Shama'a. Number 5, Zachar, Zachara. Number 6, Malach, Malacha. Excuse me. So what I wanted to, excuse me, to talk about here is this is third person masculine and this is third person feminine, he and she. So always the third person masculine in this format, in this conjugation. This is the basic format that you would see. So if you were looking up a word, it would be in third person masculine singular here in this form with the kamatz and the patak. Or you might see it with the dots. But I think in most of the lexicons, you're going to see it initially in this form. So just be aware of that. This is your basic form here, the third person masculine. The other thing is, and there's actually a note on this, and in chapter 6, when we start on that, I'll talk about notes, because your book does contain notes in the back, and we'll mention that in a little more detail in chapter 6. But just to let you know, actually, this note comes from chapter 6, but I'm not sure why it wasn't put here, since this is where we're beginning to practice these verbs. In the third person feminine, she, and also in the third person plural, either masculine or feminine, they, you'll see this format for the conjugation. You'll see a kamatz, a shavah, and then in the feminine, you'll see another kamatz with a hey. In the plural form, it'll be just no vowel here with an oo on the end. But here's the key. Here's the thing to understand. Remember the rule. I gave you the rule earlier, and that's what is operating here. You have a long vowel preceding the shavah. So your tendency is to end the syllable with this shavah, making it silent. You'll want to say halcha, which I actually did at the very beginning. But in fact, because this is a long vowel, remember that when a shavah follows a long vowel, it is vocal. So the correct pronunciation would be hale, although you won't hold it that long, but halacha, halacha. So don't confuse this or see this as a silent shavah. It is a vocal shavah because it follows the long vowel. All right, just be aware of that as we continue. Like I say, in chapter 6, we'll spend a little more time on the notes and on that particular note regarding this. Exercise 3 then, same as 1 and 2, just very basic. I'll read the Hebrew, but I'll leave you on your own to translate and double check and make sure that you're correct with your translation just by looking up the words. Pretty basic, simple sentences, easy to do. Okay, so let's start with number 3 in chapter 6. Number 1, David Zachar. Number 2, Ahmad Abraham. Number 3, Sarah Amidah. Number 4, Av Shamar. Number 5, Hanara Shamara. Number 6, Shama'a Ha'isha. Number 7, Ruth Zachara. 8, Hu Halach. Number 9, He Halacha. Exercise 4, read and translate with the correct verb. We're not going to do anything with this other than to just remind you that what you're looking for here is your subject masculine, feminine, singular, or plural? Although in this exercise, you don't have to worry about singular or plural. They'll all be in the singular. But is it masculine or feminine? If you determine it's masculine, you want to look for the verb that is masculine. Feminine, look for the verb that is feminine. Make sure the verb matches the subject. And that's all we're doing with exercise 4. Let's continue now with exercise 5, read and translate. And we are in chapter 5. I'm thinking that possibly in some of the previous slides, it may indicate, or you might think that we're in chapter 6. We are not. We are in chapter 5. But this is exercise 5. It's read and translate. And from this point on, what will happen is these sentence exercises, the longer sentences, I will just read the Hebrew here in the video. As before, I'll ask you to practice on your own, then listen to the video, and then practice as much as you need to. The translation, I'll ask you to do again on your own. I won't give that to you here in the video, but I do have these sentences up on Quizlet on a flashcard. So on one side of the flashcard is the Hebrew, and I'll be reading the Hebrew on the flashcard. And then on the other side is the translation. But please do your work first. Do your translation first, and then you can check it with the Quizlet translation. Remember that some words have more than one meaning, so there might be more than one way to translate it. Just make sure that you are using one of the acknowledged meanings of the word. All right, so I will read these sentences for you in just a moment, and then you can listen and then practice on your own, as always. Exercise 5. Number 1. Hana'ara halacha v'hi amida. Number 2. Hamelech malach v'hu zachar. Number 3. Shemara Sarah v'hi amida. Number 4. Amad David v'hu malach. Exercise 5, number 5. Hamishpacha malcha v'hi zachara ben. Number 6. Zachara Sarah davar ubein. Number 7. Shama Avraham v'hu zachar v'hu halach. Number 8. Abehema amida v'hi halacha. So now we get to the fun part. Exercise 6 starts a new series of exercises, 6 and 7 in this chapter, chapter 5. These exercises will be generally repeated in every chapter from now on, and they'll get a little more complicated as it continues. But I want to go over the basics with you, make sure that you understand what they're asking of you, what is to be done in these exercises. So I will spend a little more time than I normally would on these exercises rather than just reading them. I want to go through a process with you. All right. So the instructions here is you'll have a sentence with underlined words, and then that will be followed by a list of words to be substituted for the underlined word. Okay, so when you replace a word, if that word was masculine, you replace it with feminine, then other things in the sentence might need to change. If it was singular and you replace it with plural, other things in the sentence may need to change. So you want to pay careful attention to the use of the words, the verb forms, and the pronouns. Those are the things you're looking for. The words themselves, the nouns themselves, the verb forms that match those nouns, and the pronouns that are connected to those nouns. Okay? The first sentence is done for you in the book. We'll do it through here. So here you see the sample sentence, Hana'ar Amad. Hana'ar Amad. So the first thing you want to do is to translate that sentence. So the young man, Hana'ar, stood. Once you have that sentence translated, I would highlight then, or underline, or however you want to do it, the word that needs to be replaced. As the sentences get more complicated, I might highlight in a different color, or circle, or do something different with everything else in the sentence that might need to change if you change the subject or the noun that is being substituted for here. All right. So again, sentence one, Hana'ar Amad, the young man stood. So then they'll give you the substitution. So instead of the young man, they have Ha'isha. Ha'isha, which is what? That is the woman or the wife. So now you know this was masculine, this is feminine. So the verb has to change, has to match the subject. So instead of amad, your verb is da. And then, of course, translate that. The woman stood. Same thing with the next one. We're exchanging the young man for Hamelech, for the king. Now, the king is masculine. The original was masculine, so the verb is going to stay the same as the original. Hamelech Amad. Hamelech Amad. And translate that, the king stood. Next substitution, for the young man, we're changing it to the house. Habayit. Habayit. The house. So you have to determine, is the house masculine or feminine? Of course it is masculine. So you have a masculine verb to go with it. And then write that sentence translation out as well. All right, so now in exercise 2, the same thing. So now we have a little longer sentence here, but we're only substituting for the subject, in this case, David. So the first thing you want to do is translate the sentence. David listened to the young woman. Nara. Okay, David listened to the young woman. So you know you're going to be substituting David. Is there anything else in the sentence that will need to change besides the verb? And in this case, we see there really isn't. To the young woman, prepositional phrase, that's going to stay the same regardless of what the subject is and the verb is. So these are the only two things that you would need to change with the substitutions. So here are the substitutions that they give you. So we're going to change David to Sarah. We're going to change David to she. We're going to change David to the son, to the family, to he, and a woman. With each change, you're going to determine how that will change the verb in the sentence, since that's the only thing you have to focus on in these sentences. So Sarah, so now you have a feminine subject, you need a feminine verb. She, feminine subject, feminine verb. Everything else will stay the same. The son, we have a masculine subject, a masculine verb. Everything else stays the same. Hamishpacha, the family, feminine, feminine. Masculine, masculine. Feminine, feminine. Remember that in this kind of a construction, Isha b'Mitzrayim, it's the first word of the phrase that you want to make sure you're matching the verb to. Okay, so that's how basic and simple this is. Okay, exercise 6, number 3. Same thing. We're going to take the original sentence that they give you, and then you're going to fill in with the substitutions. So the original sentence, you want to translate, Avraham zachar davar min hamelech. Abraham remembered a word from the king. Only thing you need to change is the substituted word and the verb in this case. So you run through all of the sentences and do just that. So one of the things that I want to point out to you here, and I will spend some time if need be on a separate video, but I have put links in the description section, and I'll keep them there from now on, to adding Hebrew fonts to your keyboard. I've talked about this a little bit before. I think it's it's very important to do that. You can decide whether you want to do it or not. You can add a font to your mobile phone as well as to your desktop or your your iPad or your pad, your whatever it is, and then that enables you to do these exercises a little more simply. If it's not comfortable for you to do that, that's fine. You can write them out and it's the same process. But here's what I want to show you. If you simply copy, once you've typed out, and you'll have to type out the original sentence because you can't really copy and paste it from the textbook. At least I haven't found a program, a PDF program that will do that. Abby PDF is the closest, but it still doesn't pick up the vowels. But at any rate, if you type this out after you get your Hebrew keyboard, your Hebrew fonts, I should say, you don't need a new keyboard. Type this out in its entirety with the vowels. Then all you have to do is copy and paste this in every one of these positions. So you've got the original sentence. Then all you do is, if you need to, just highlight and replace whatever words you're replacing, and then change the vowel as it needs to be, or the verb as it needs to be changed. It makes it a lot simpler, but that's again up to you. I mean, you do the same thing. If you're writing it out, you would just simply write out this part of the verb, of the sentence is going to be the same in every other sentence. Devar min hamelech. That's not going to change, so that's going to be the same in every other sentence. So each one you have, devar min hamelech, devar min hamelech, devar min hamelech, devar min hamelech, devar min hamelech. It's going to be the same in each sentence. So the only thing then you'll need to change, possibly, is what you've substituted. So your initial verb is masculine. So if you have a masculine subject, that's going to stay the same too. Then all you're going to do is change your substituted word, habein. If it's feminine, then you'll need to change the verb. But that's it. That makes it a lot quicker to deal with it. You just have to make sure once you've copied and pasted the original sentence that you make the changes that need to be made and double check them. All right, so that's just another idea, something to think about that might work well for you. But again, it's just substituting the word and changing the vowel, the verb as it needs to be changed. Okay, so that's exercise 3. Exercise 4. Same process. Sentence is getting a little more complicated. The word you're going to change out is melech, king, which is still the subject. So your first thing you want to do is to translate it. A king stood, and he ruled, and he listened to the family. So now you've got some different substitutions. Again, you can highlight in different colors, or you can mark it in some way so that you know. But once you've written out the original sentence, then mark what needs to change in some way. So you know that you're changing, in my case, what is highlighted in yellow is what I'll be changing, a king. I know I have to change the verb. And then I'm going to have to change the pronoun and the verb that goes with it, and the next pronoun and the verb that goes with it, because both of these pronouns are related to a king. So if we change that, these might need to change. So we, again, copy and paste the sentences. We substitute what needs to be substituted. So here we substitute Ha'av, the father, for the king. Okay. And notice again, I've just copied and pasted this sentence down here. So the pronouns in this case don't need to change because the father's masculine. So everything stays the same as up here, except I've substituted the noun, the subject. Okay, Sarah, now I've changed from a king to Sarah. Sarah is feminine, so that has to change the verb and the pronouns and the verbs that go with it. Okay, so the he rather than the who. Who is he? He is she. And that's how simple that is. Same thing here. Ha'ish Yerushalayim, the man from Jerusalem. Well, the man is still masculine singular, so everything else here is going to stay the same. Nothing will change because your pronouns will be the same and your verb. Same thing here. Exercise 5, then. Read and translate, same thing. It's exercise 6, number 5. Same thing. Write out your sentence, note what things need to change, and then change them. Subject, verb, pronoun, verb. Same thing. Just when you have phrases that are the subject, remember that it's always going to be the first word of the phrase, na'ar, that you're going to be matching your verb and pronouns to. And we have number 6, exercise 6. And normally, when we get into this exercise in subsequent chapters, I won't be spending this much time going through it, but we'll simply be reading. I haven't been reading these verses, although these sentences. Although again, reminding you, this exercise is up on Quizlet. I do read the sentences, and the translations are on the opposite side of the card. So all of that, so you can get your practice reading up on Quizlet. Make sure you do that. Okay. And normally in the video, I'll do the readings here, but I just want you to see the flow of what's happening with this. So again, in exercise 6, number 6, we have the subject that's going to be substituted. We have the verb that goes with it. We have whatever pronoun and verb that also will need to change in the sentences. So we begin the sentences here. Changing David, changing Haish Mitzrayim, the man from Egypt, the woman, Haisha, the king, so now let's come to exercise 7. And this is again one that will continue in each subsequent chapter, and it'll get more and more difficult as it continues. But here is the thing: if you have your Hebrew keyboard, your Hebrew font set up, then you can use it to write the sentence out. This is the sentence that they give you. They give you the sentence in Hebrew. And as before, the first thing you want to do is translate that sentence so you can quickly see what you're working with. So, Ha'ish shamar melech, v'ha'isha shamra behema. The man guarded a king. The man guarded a king, and the woman guarded cattle or an animal. Remember that this is singular. If we translate it as cattle, sometimes we think of that as a plural noun. It is not in Hebrew. It is singular, so everything has to stay singular and feminine when it's connected to this. Okay. Although we're not going to be changing anything in this particular sentence, but I did want to point that out. All right, so again, if you have your Hebrew font, then you type out this sentence. Once you've typed it out, you copy it. And then you will be doing, actually don't copy this one in its entirety, but you will be doing copying and pasting if you have it, and I'll show you how simple that is. So now, this is the original sentence that they've given you. The man guarded a king, the woman guarded a cattle. So now they're going to give you additional sentences based on this sentence, based on the original. And you're simply going to, so they give you the sentence, the man guarded. Okay? All right, so you look at your original sentence. Oh, look, the man guarded. It's word for word. So you take the Hebrew, word for word, ha'ish shamar, the man guarded. And you copy and paste or rewrite it down here, and you have your answer. This is the sentence, a man guarded. Okay, that's for A. Then another thing to point out, if for some reason it's faster for you to do a transliteration rather than the writing of the Hebrew, okay, try it. It's you really do need to be practicing your Hebrew writing or recognizing it at any rate. The writing is irrelevant. You're not necessarily going to be writing Hebrew at this point. All we're doing is learning to read and translate biblical Hebrew. That's the goal of the class. But just to give you some practice, you might try this. Now, here's the thing about transliterations. And I will give you on probably Google Docs, I'll give you a transliteration guide that'll show you the proper way to transliterate, but I'll also show you my way, how I do it, which isn't the proper way. But here's the thing. Who cares? As long as this for you is exactly what you've read here in the Hebrew, if whatever works for you, that's the only transliteration you need. Nobody's going to be grading you, at least not in this class. Nobody's going to be grading you on your transliteration. So whatever's comfortable. So in this case, ha'ish sounds like ha'ish shamar, ha'ish shamar. So if you're not typing with a keyboard, perhaps this is faster to just write it out in the English letters, the Latin letters in transliteration. Ha'ish shamar. So that's something you can think about doing. But again, the practice for doing this is very important in terms of the writing of the Hebrew, just simply so that you're getting the practice at recognizing the letters and the vowels that go with it. Okay? So again, but copy and paste. Ha'ish shamar, the man guarded. The next sentence, the man guarded a king. All right, you're looking at your original, the man guarded a king. Wow, that's word for word. All right, so all you're doing is taking word for word. Ha'ish shamar melech. Ha'ish shamar melech. That's it. Copy and paste. And you've got it, but make sure you're reading what you're doing and translating what you're doing as you're reading it, so that's the practice that I want you to get out of this. And again, if you want to do it with the transliteration, fine. Ha'ish shamar melech. Should be a shiva here, but at any rate, ha'ish shamar melech. And I again, my the chaf, I might do ch rather than kh, because the chuf, the chet would be the letter chet. We have that up here. We do not, but anyway, the letter chet, I would write ch just to differentiate the two letters. It doesn't matter. Again, all you need to do is write whatever you need to write so that you know how to pronounce the phrase that you've got here. Ha'ish shamar melech. Okay? The man guarded a king, the woman guarded a king. So now you don't have that up here. You have the man guarded a king, but it's the same phrase other than the man is replaced with the woman, which you have over here. So if you want to get real, do this real easily, I suppose, you could copy and paste shamar Shamra. Well, again, you'd have to copy and paste it here. Haisha Shamra, and then copy and paste king, melech. But you can do that. It might be faster, or might be in this case faster just to type it out. But notice how easy it is to know exactly what it is you're going to be typing or writing, because the woman guarded a king, and you look up here and you see you have the phrase the man guarded a king, and you have the phrase the woman guarded. So you're going to take that phrase, the woman guarded, and then replace cattle with a king. Okay, so essentially you'd be taking Hayisha Shamra Behema, and then replacing Behema with Melech. Make sure you drop off the end, the Vav here. And Hayisha Shamra Melech, the woman guarded a king. Very simple, very easy to do. The woman guarded an animal. Okay, word for word. The woman guarded cattle or an animal. Ha'isha Shamra Behema. So now your sentences will get a little more complicated. We went the man guarded an animal and the woman guarded a king. Just same sentence, but reversing the object of each of these. So Ha'ish Shamar Behema, Ha'ish Shamar Behema, the man guarded an animal. Vit Ha'isha Shamra Melech instead of Behema. But you can still copy and paste this whole sentence, put it down here, and then just substitute what needs to be substituted. Might be faster, might not. Maybe it's faster just to write it out on your own. However you want to do that is fine, or transliterate it. However you do that is fine, as long as you, again, don't get too tied up in transliteration. I have really found transliteration doesn't help a whole lot in learning Hebrew. It is a tool and it can be used, and I have used it successfully to memorize various passages, various prayers. To begin with, I start with the transliteration and then say it over and over and over again until the sound of what I'm saying is familiar to me, and then I can go back and actually read the Hebrew easily. I don't, as I'm reading the Hebrew, I've practiced the sound of it through the transliteration, and then reading the Hebrew becomes very easy to do. But that's a process. You could perhaps do just as well by reading the Hebrew slowly, 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 until finally you can read it through fluently. Right? But as far as this exercise, copy and pasting works just fine. The man guarded a word, so now we're getting a little more fancy. We don't have a word up here. We don't have that. So we have to make sure we know the Hebrew for a word. So Ha'ish Shamar is the same, Ha'ish Shamar, but the object instead of Melech is going to be Devar. With Ha'isha Shamra, and the object instead of animal is going to be again Devar. So again, copying and pasting, and then just substituting the object in the sentence with Devar, and you're done. Exercise 7, number 2. Malach HaMelech Merushalayim V'hu Shama El David. Malach, the king from Jerusalem, ruled, or you could say, I don't know that the order necessarily matters in English or here in the Hebrew, but the subject is Hamelech, the subject is the king ruled. Whether you say the king ruled from Jerusalem or the king from Jerusalem ruled, I don't know that that makes a whole lot of difference. The who and he, Shema, listened El to David. Listen to David. Same thing. You'll get your substitute sentences. You'll put them up here and translate. They'll give you the English. You translate it into the Hebrew, which we've done here. So Malach HaMelech Merushalayim, Malach HaMelech Vehu Shama. Same with Dalet He and Vav. Ha'ish Shama Davar, Ha'isha Shama El David, Ha'ish Merushalayim Shama El HaMelech. Just rewriting the English sentences that they give you into the Hebrew using this sentence as your guide. Copying and pasting works fine. Exercise 7, number 3, same thing. As we come across, Ruth Zachra Na'ar Mitzrayim V'hi Halcha El Yerushalayim. Ruth remembered a young man from Egypt, and she went to Jerusalem. So then you take the sentences they give you, cut and paste, or rewrite them. Ruth Zachra Na'ar, Ruth remembered a young man. Zachar Na'ar Mitzrayim Isha. A young man from Egypt remembered a woman. Ruth halcha el Mitzrayim. So Ruth went to Egypt. And the next sentence, he zachra na'ara mitzrayim. She remembered a young woman from Egypt. Zachar na'ara Merushalayim vihu halach el Mitzrayim. So a young man remembered a young woman. How do you know which of these two is the subject? Well, because this matches this verb, if you were reading it without having translated it. So Na'ara Merushalayim, a young woman from Jerusalem, and he went to Mitzrayim, Egypt. Doesn't sound like a good start for a relationship there. And then finally, we have exercise 8, just simply reading and translating. As I've mentioned before, I will read the Hebrew from now on. The translation will be up on Quizlet. Be sure that you spend time on your own doing your own translation first before you check it out on Quizlet. Then check it out, see how you did. Change the things that need to be changed and learn from the process. I will also be reading the Hebrew up on Quizlet as well, but I'll read it here as we go through this. So let's continue now with exercise 8, number 1. Ha'av shamar bein uvat vehu shama davar merushalayim. Number 2. Ruth amida vehi zachara ish veisha mimitzrayim vehi shama'a el hana'ar vehi halcha el hana'ar. 3. Hamishpacha amada vehi shamara bait vehi malcha. Continuing in exercise 8, number 4. Shamar ha'av v'ha'isha amida v'habat halcha el Mitzrayim. Number 5. Malach HaMelech Merushalayim v'hu zachar behema miMitzrayim v'hu halach el Mitzrayim v'hu shamar behema. Number 6. Hana'ar zachar na'ara Merushalayim V'hu zachar na'ara mimitzrayim, v'hu halach el ... Yerushalayim. The suspense is palpable. Let's look at chapter 5, exercises for nouns and verbs feminine. We've introduced some new types of exercises here that we'll be continuing. So be sure and practice, practice, practice. Spend as much time as you need to. I don't know that I need to point this out, but I will. I am trying to upload one chapter a week, which is two different classes, one for the review, one for the exercises. That doesn't mean you are expected to do these in a week's time. Take as much time as you need to, and then continue when you're ready. So don't rush it. Spend the time. The most important thing, and I mention this over and over to my classes, it's so important. You're really, your focus needs to be on the vocabulary. Do not continue until the vocabulary is set in your mind so that translations become easy. If you're struggling, go back again and practice on Quizlet with the vocabulary flashcards. Vocabulary, vocabulary, vocabulary. That is the key, not only to translation, but to reading Hebrew. Once the words are familiar, you're not going to be reading letters, you're going to be reading words. So please, please, please spend the time you need on vocabulary. That needs to be your primary focus. So do that. We will continue then with chapter 6, nouns and verbs. We'll be doing something a little different, but we'll be continuing then with the review on chapter 6 next. That'll be coming up. So otherwise, thanks for joining me here as we take a look at Beginning Biblical Hebrew, the first Hebrew primer, 3rd edition. I'm Tom Averna on Yeshiva B'nai Noach. Shalom.